Fantasia in D minor by Mozart. This is actually one of the first pieces I'd ever learned. So it should be really interesting to play this again and to teach it. As usual, I'll begin by playing through the first 15 seconds or so of the music, just to give you a sense of the piece, and then I'll slow it down, I'll break it apart, and I'll show you how to learn it yourself. Here we go, the Fantasia in D minor. This is a good place as any to stop. Okay, not too shabby. One thing to note about this piece and this particular period of musical history is that the composers didn't necessarily write in all of the commands so as to, elucidate exactly how they wanted the piece played. They often didn't include dynamic markings, articulation markings. It was really only with Beethoven where he started to really be a stickler for these kind of details. So the same thing is true with this. So this introduction is sometimes played quite a bit quicker or as slow as I just did it. So there is a little bit of interpretive flexibility, I would say. All right, so let's begin. This piece is in D minor, and we begin in D minor. The entirety of the introduction is just trading off between the hands. So actually I can teach it to you hands together immediately. Our position to start off is this. 5, 4, 2, 1 on the left, 1, 2, 4, 5 in the right. We begin from the bottom and move towards the top. When the left hand finishes, lift the middle two notes, but keep the outside ones down. I'll tell you in a little bit why that is. Continuing, the right hand then has 1, 2, 4. Back to 2, and then a descent from the top, 5, 4, 2 to 1. And that's the pattern that repeats for the next few bars. Now, pedaling is an interesting thing. Again, because of the instrumentation of the time and the what they had available to them, it's very different in terms of what they had to work with. A piano today doesn't sound anything like the forte piano they used at the time, at their own time, and so there are some things that one should keep in view as one decides how exactly to pedal something like this. This is all D minor. So technically, you could just keep the pedal down throughout. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. If you find that to be a little bit too boomy, say it doesn't fit into the classical style in your view, that is why it's written in such a way that the outside notes of the left hand stay down. Because if you have these down, and say you lift the pedal when you play the right, the bottom of the left hand, these outside notes, will act as a kind of pedal, right? You can still hear the bottoms, which allow for a kind of water to be poured into the paint to still give it a feeling of it being pedaled. So you can find a nice balance between maybe if it's something that's too muddy. If that sounds a bit too muddy for you, given that it is Mozart, then you can toy around with changing the pedal somewhere in the middle of the right hand. For example, changing here on the pinky, or change on the 4, right? Or again, change, right? You can change somewhere in the midst of the right hand. The left hand will keep things feeling like there is a pedal, and you will avoid the boominess if that's something that you want to avoid. I want to give you some details here now so that I don't have to talk about it later. So apologies if this is taking a long time. Anyway, I'll continue now with a kind of just a general correct pedaling, as I would teach any other piece in terms of, following where the harmony changes. That's where generally we want pedal changes. Okay, so there's your first bar. Next bar is identical. Change pedal. Next, change into diminish with the pedal point D. So that would be 5, 3, 2, and 1. Lift the middles. 1, 2, 4, 5 in the right. And the same pattern repeats here. Like that. Once more, all stitched up. Next bar is identical. Change pedal. Moving on. The next grouping. Five, 3, 2, and 1. 1, 2, 3, and 5. That's our position. And the exact same pattern repeats. Twice. As I said before, I might recommend changing the pedal on each of these swells, let's call them. From a musical point of view, you want to have each of them have a very clear swell where it starts quiet and then maybe arrives here and then relaxes back down quietly. Right, so there is like or I guess I'll draw it this way for you. There's a swell up, and all of them should have that. And as you progress through this introduction, each of these swells becomes bigger and bigger, in my view. There's more and more tension. This part I'll have a look at in the next part of the tutorial. So come and join me, and I'll finish this off for you. We're going at it little by little, because if you can manage this beginning well, and you begin to understand some of the intricacies and details, you can kind of export that to the rest of the piece, because a lot of it does repeat. Okay, so I'll see you in just a bit. Let's continue on forward.